Our group looked at multi-touch technology and looked to try to figure out a way to add an audio layer. And in a traditional kiosk, it's a pretty straightforward task to add audio. What's a little different in multi-touch is that you have a dynamic environment. The objects tend to move across the table. You have multiple users. The analogy that I use is that there's more, a multi-touch table may have more in common with a tabletop hands-on exhibit than it would with a traditional kiosk. So adding audio isn't, is difficult, and it winds up, well, as you'll see, there are a number of issues in how it gets implemented. What our group did was we looked at 4 approaches and then sort of whittled that down to 2, and we're going to share those 2 approaches. One of the approaches uses gestures to activate the audio. The other one uses a fiducial or an object to generate audio. The prototype example that we actually have on the table that mostly works, like most prototypes mostly work, uses the uses gestures to activate the audio. And so we'll be going through a short presentation and showing you that, and then talking about some possible extensions and then discussion. So who takes us through the first one?
I think we have some introductory slides, don't we?
Okay.
No, we don't. We just go straight gesture approach. Okay. So the gesture approach. What you can see is a multi-touch table here, and one of the things we discussed is that just like when you enter into New England habitats here, there's that introductory kiosk. We would have some sort of introductory kiosk that you would come into as you entered in. That would explain that as you enter, you're going to access a multi-touch table, and then you would come up to the multi-touch table. You'd have your images and a earphone there that would explain what you're going to do. We decided that we needed to split the audio some sort of way, so you can see 2 audio domes. And I have anxiety disorder, and so I'm actually having a little anxiety issue right now. So I find sometimes the best way for me to get over that is to tell people, I'm having an anxiety issue right now. So can we all go, that's okay, Michael.
That's okay. We're going to try and capture that in personalization.
Michael, you're good.
Okay. Thank you, Cal. All right, now we're ready to go. See that totally, that's what I have to do, is break that ice. Speaking of ice crystals. And so the gesture that we're implementing here is a 3-tap touch gesture, because that's not a common gesture that you use on multi-touch devices. And so as you're floating across the screen, as you pass over an image, it would voice out to you the title of that image. So in this case, ice crystal formation, and you'll get to hear my lovely voice say that in the demo. Next slide. And the earphone would explain to you that if you tap, you get the audio layer. And the tap, in this case, says a 20-minute exposure to the night sky reveals the Earth's rotation at the South Pole Research Station. So the pros that we discussed were no additional programming required. Charles might go beat goats, turning back on that pro after spending last night trying to do the programming for it. There's no extra hardware, you're just using your hands, right? So there's no, no additional objects that are needed. It encourages exploration of the table. It's how regular users would interact with the table. It's multimodal and can benefit most users, but the cons are that it's harder for low mobility users because it does require a 3-finger touch, and so if you don't have limited dexterity, that's going to be an issue. It could be triggered accidentally as opposed to the fiducial or the audio puck, as we're going to call it. And, oh, sorry, I'm taking stealing Gary's thunder. And then the gestures aren't really standardized yet. I mean, we picked a 3 touch because it was at least...
Yeah, it's the least likely that you're going to set off by accident. In most of our observations, people do 2 fingers for pan and scale, or single finger for navigation, or they use a whole hand. So the idea is 3 fingers would be, we wouldn't be triggering audio accidentally in most cases.
And then there is this competing audio tracks thing that you'll experience when you're up there. I mean, how do you, if somebody else is doing the same thing as you, you know, you're going to hear ice crystal formation, you know, the Antarctic night sky simultaneously. So how do you divide up that audio if there's multiple people doing this gesture technique at the table? And I think that's the end of me. Yep.
Let's do it. All right. Good morning.
Morning.
Good. I found the audience. This is good. All right. So option 2 for this audible interactive table was, as Michael said, we discussed the possibility of, instead of using a 3-finger hand gesture, rather than doing that, we created a piece of hardware that I learned yesterday was called a fiducial. But we made a snazzier name. We called it, as Michael indicated, an audio puck. Why audio puck? Because this is what we're going to deal with. Are y'all familiar with what this is? It's a mouse, right? Well, it's actually not going to look like a mouse. But we discussed shape and size, whether it should be a circle, a rectangle, a square, and that sort of thing. And that's really still open for discussion as this project was forwarded to the R&D phases with the team, and a focus group of some sort should be implemented to gather data from stakeholders as to what they feel is the most optimal shape and size of what we're going to call the audio puck. And I did make the comment to my team this morning, you could sell naming rights to the Boston Bruins to be a fundraiser for the Museum of the Audio Puck, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, so that being the case, so we're going to have an introductory kiosk again, where a patron can go up to this and pick up an audio phone, and they're going to be introduced to a model, a tactile model of the audio puck. And it's going to explain how it works. So as you use the audio puck to hover over the different images on the touch screen, it will speak information about the image. It'll say its name, ice crystals, and so on and so forth. And then if you as the patron want to learn more about ice crystals, you can then click a button like this, and it will activate additional information about that image. It'll give a further description of it. And then if you want to learn more, maybe there's a video clip attached to it. You click it again, and it'll launch a video and give you as the patron all you'd ever want to know about the formation of ice crystals in Antarctica, or whatever it happens to be. Another application I thought of yesterday with this table, me being a research chemist, is we can put a periodic table image on the screen, and you can touch the various elements that you want to react with one another. I think that'd be kind of neat to do. I personally would like to oversee that project, but that's just me. So anyway, so then once the patron is at the kiosk, it describes the hardware and how it works, but then it will also give a verbal description of the orientation of the table and how they should approach the table, as far as if they should stand on the end or the long side of the table, and how they can best find the information on it. And then they can go through and activate till the heart's content. And it will also indicate where the audio puck is stored at the table, because it won't just be sitting on top. And you pull it out of its storage container and you interact with the table, and then you put it away when you're done. Now, the pros are it's going to be very easily usable by people with limited dexterity on the table, and they'll provide lots of audio description for blind, low vision patrons, and it's going to provide a multi-sensory experience with the visual and the audio, and even a tactile experience with the interaction with the audio puck. Now, one of the cons is, guess what? Things tend to disappear from museums, right? Well, this audio puck might walk away from time to time, and will have to be repeatedly replaced. And as it is, it's a piece of hardware with movable parts. It can break easily, and so those are all challenges that we're going to have to deal with as part of this design. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to the convention person.
No, it's a demo.
It's demo time. Oh, it's demo time. Okay. There you go.
Hello. So, how are we going to do this?
Well, I think we want to talk through what the orientation. You guys have an orientation script. This was just sort of a sample script.
Yeah, so Betty, who couldn't be here today, but has been here all week, Betty and I tried to think about what would be on that intro kiosk, and then also the actual script for the earphone on the table. And so I'm going to read that to you now, like you would be a visitor who would come up to one of those. And then we'd ask all of y'all to come over and actually look at the table. Charles has done some amazing programming, and so we can try out the gesture interface. I can't try out the puck today, but, you know, sorry. So, do you feel like you need to speak up a little bit? Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so this is what would be read to you at the intro kiosk that was described. Welcome to the NSF Polar Research Interactive. 2 steps in front of you is a large multi-touch table that includes a collection of images. The table can sense your fingers touching the glass surface. For an audio description, touch an image with 3 fingers. To hear more about an image, tap once with 3 fingers. Find other images by sliding through fingers along the table surface. Then when you get to the table, the earphone will say, welcome to the NSF Polar Research Interactive. Touch the table with 3 fingers for an audio description. Slide your fingers to locate and identify an image. For more information, tap 3 fingers once. So it just gives you a little bit more detail as to what you'll be doing when you get to the table in case you didn't go to the intro kiosk. We know that not everyone's going to do that, but it is good for somebody who's blind, for example, or who is on the autism spectrum. They want to know what they're getting into before they get into it. So just for different styles of learners.
Go to the table. So I guess the idea is everyone comes up, right?